Happy Memorial Day weekend, everybody. This is Kevin. You are listening to the 14th installment of the weekend version of the podcast. Today, we're going to talk about why Calibrate.
It's been a long time coming. 6 days a week, 10 hours a shift. What about the OT? Well, it ain't worth this. This ain't no 9 to 5 out here on these production lines. So I told them where to shove it, then they could read between the lines.
All right, happy Memorial Day weekend, everybody. Thank you to all of those who have served us in this country to give us the kind of freedom that we have here to do things like a podcast, to do things like drive around in your car, and to do things like make better measurements. So this week, lots of fun stuff happening in the podcast. Figure we'll go over the highlights, being that this is the video version of the podcast. Kind of like to touch base on what we talked about during the week, so that if you're so inclined, you can hit that up. Find me on iTunes, SoundCloud, pretty much all the major platforms, or you can just go to your Echo device and say, hey, Alexa, play the PT Gurus podcast, and up I'll come. So Monday, we talked about arguing with an assessor. Pick your battles. That's what it really boils down to. But we'll give you some tips here and there. Tuesday, which has kind of become metrology in the home sort of day, we talked about sous vide. I've seen no better place where calibration and cooking have come together to create such an incredible cooking technique. On Wednesday, for our equipment day, we talked about RS-232. Some of you may be somewhat familiar with that as kind of an old communications platform for digital things. It's still around. We're still using it on a regular basis in sort of manufacturing and production environments. Then Thursday, our quality toolkit day. We talked about using Excel for standard deviations and how there's just some things you should be aware of if you go to use it that way. And then on Friday, we talked about, but is it ISO? Basically some top errors that I've seen from folks that are either trying to get accredited, maintain accreditation, or just kind of have a lab that maybe meets the requirements of ISO 17025 without actually being assessed to ISO 17025. So that's the week in a nutshell. From there, let's get right into some content for the weekend here, and we're going to answer the question, why Calibrate? Well, the answer is really simple for the most part, because in most industries, you have to. End of story. Should I end the cast here? No. We'll talk about this more. So regulation in industry in this country, and a lot of other countries as well, has really reached an extremely high level. The reason for the regulation that we talk about with calibration usually has to do with safety. So it's not necessarily bad regulation when we're talking about trying to make sure things are safe. So when we look at things like were the lugs that hold the wheel, the lug nuts that hold the wheel on your car, properly hardened so that they're not too soft and they strip out when you try to tighten them, or too hard where they break off, both of which could make the wheel come off your car while driving, that would be bad. That's a calibration thing. Is the torque wrench that was used to tighten that wheel reading accurately to ensure that properly hardened lug nut isn't over or under tightened? Under tightening, the lug nut falls off. Over tightening, things can break. And again, the wheel falls off your car. Not a good thing, because you know it's going to happen while you're driving. When we look at the pharmaceutical industry, and they're producing drugs, life-saving, life-changing miracle compounds, is the scale that they're using have sufficient accuracy to ensure the right amount of each compound goes into a batch of product. Contrary to what you might think, most pharmaceutical products have other fillers and binders as part of the drug itself. It's not all just the one active sort of compound in there. But from there, is the mixer time and speed accurate enough to ensure that everything in that batch is homogeneously mixed together, so that when we then take that and produce tablets from it, that each one of them contains the same amount of the active ingredient? It would be a really big problem if this isn't homogeneous, where you have one tablet that has double the amount of medicine in it and another tablet that has no medicine in it. That would really be kind of a big problem. And then, from there, when we make the tablets in pharmaceutical world using a tablet press, are the tablets all the same size, same shape? Again, this is calibration at its height. Then from there, let's look at food. That's a great example as well. When you get to the grocery store and you pick the Hungry Man frozen dinner out of the freezer case, was everything in there cooked to the proper temperature to ensure all the bacteria were killed? Now, has it been maintained in an environment that will prevent bacteria from growing in storage? And then when you cook it, you did check it with your thermometer to make sure it was 165 degrees before you ate it, right? No, you probably ate it still a little cold in the middle, and just trust that those other two portions of the system have not broken down at any point in time. So, what else? Talk about the parts in an airplane. Can't really pull over to the side of the road when you have a little issue at that point. So when we look at the parts that go into an airplane engine, were they made of the right material? Good question. Are they the right size so that when the engine heats up and the parts get bigger, they don't cause a failure? Now, that same part, when it was inspected at its last maintenance, was it meeting tolerance? Was it checked against some kind of tolerance? Let's say you go to the hospital. Let's say your grandmother goes to the hospital, and the air that's in that hospital room that she's in, is it properly filtered? Is it flowing in the right direction to make sure that air from that sick guy down the hall with something completely different that you really don't want your grandmother to get isn't ending up in her room and making her sicker? Are the rooms being monitored the whole time to make sure that these things don't fail? It just didn't get kind of set up and just left to run its course, and then when a fan fails someplace, you don't know about it. You run to the hardware store. You get a 1/4-20 screw because that's what you need to put something back together. It broke, it fell out, you lost it, whatever, and you get it home and it works. It just works. Why? Calibration. It's measurement. This is all measurement stuff. So this is just a super short list of some of the places where calibration and measurement exist, and that they are just absolutely crucial. Now, think about something like your car. We all take it for granted. We get up in the morning, start it up, hit the highway, let's go, load the family up, bring the dog too, and then we go barreling down the highway, 70 miles an hour. Nearly 3 times the fastest human on Earth has ever run. Pretty quick. And we do this the whole time, toting 10-15 gallons of highly explosive liquid underneath the back seat, and we don't think twice about it. All of these bits and pieces seem to work together every time until something breaks. But even when it breaks, it never seems to be the catastrophic, horrible fireball that we see in the movies. Something breaks, the car limps to the side of the road, and we go, oh, I need a tow, let's get it fixed. Not, something breaks and just erupts into a giant fireball. So this is why this is all part of calibration. And, in this kind of case, we're actually talking about calibration and engineering, where engineering and measurement are working in close proximity with one another to ensure things are safe, especially the important things, the safety sort of things. We take so many of these things that better and better measurement have brought to our lives for granted. So we look at things like better food quality and safety because we have more precise measurements of temperature happening associated with food. Better, more efficient electrical systems because we can measure unnecessary losses of current through heat generation better. better, more fuel-efficient cars through tighter machining tolerances, and safer hospitals because we use things like air balancing. Think about it. You got a lot of sick people in one spot, and they all got different sicknesses. Going to be a problem if we don't have the air flowing in the right directions, as we kind of mentioned a little bit earlier. But measurement really is everywhere we look, and especially when you think about safety, being safe, and making things okay to use, to eat, to whatever. The advancements in measurement that are happening every single day make for a safer, better quality, more convenient tomorrow. I'm Kevin. Drop by the website. Let me know what you think. www.ptguruconsulting.com. Got lots of tools for calibration over there. Got videos over there. All kinds of fun stuff going on. So you can also get to the podcast from there. You can get to this video cast from there as well. So hope you're having a great Memorial Day weekend. Make sure you're keeping it safe. And I'm going to talk to you during the week. Thank you so much.